Welcome to the Post-Symposium Community Integration Webinar Series. This presentation, Knowing the Veteran, Building Trusted and Supportive Long-Term Relationships, is the second of a three-part series. Our agenda for today is going to begin with short introductions, followed by a panel discussion, and then we will open the floor to your questions. The moderator for today's session is Sherry Tham, Vice President of Programs and Initiatives and co-founder of America's Warrior Partnership and its community integration model. Her license and degree as a clinical social worker informs her work as principal investigator with America's Warrior Partnership's Operation Deep Dive. Operation Deep Dive is a community-based study of veteran suicide, asphyxiation, drowning, death by law enforcement, and single-drive high-speed car accident. Her position functions to develop and maintain mission-driven, sustainable programs, services, and initiatives consistent with America's Warrior Partnership's mission and model of community integration. That's it for me. Cherie, the floor is yours.
Allison, thank you very much. So Allison told you a little bit about myself. I typically like to let the panelists introduce themselves. So Terry, let's start with you, if you don't mind introducing yourself and talk a little bit about your organization.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Terry Finley. I spent 24 years in the Army. I'm retired, and I work for Clear Path for Veterans. We're out here in Syracuse, New York, or Central New York. We're just east of Syracuse University. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit that concentrates on about 6 programs and services for veterans, service members, and their families. So it's everything from transition, education, employment, wellness, and then collaboration. We hold once a month, over 60 organizations come to our facility to collaborate and ideas on how we can help veterans and their families.
Great, thank you. Einan, would you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your organization, your program?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, today, she and John seen she had initially. Kiani, but she's Kiani, that she touch. I originally come from Allentown, Arizona. So the program that I work for are the meeting called Dinesh Partnership. So basically what I do is I reconnect with veterans, Navajo Nation.
Am I the only one that's hearing Einan break a little bit?
Hello?
She's coming in broken, Sherry.
Okay. Einan, you're coming in a little broken. You might need to call in on your phone.
Okay, I can go do that. Or do you mind if I turn off the video? Would that work?
That'd be fine.
Okay. So is it a lot better?
Yes.
Okay. As I was saying that I reconnect with veterans here on the Navajo Nation. I help them out as far as trying to get them reconnected through federal VA benefits, even if it's just at the local level with the Navajo Nation Veterans Affairs, trying to get them reconnected there, getting volunteers, or just helping out any way that I possibly can to improve the quality of life for those that are here on the Navajo Nation, and just being that extra support back out here for them. That's pretty much the work that I do here on the Navajo Nation as part of the Dinesh Partnership.
That's funny. Thank you. Thank you very much, Einan. Jared.
Yes.
Tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jared Turner. I am the Director of Warrior Engagement for the Warrior Alliance, located in beautiful Atlanta, Georgia. Well, right now it's raining. I think everybody's experiencing the rain here in the South. But again, the Warrior Alliance is essentially a backbone collaborative. AWP is one of our partners. What we do is we connect veterans of all eras to different best-in-class resources here throughout the greater Atlanta metropolitan area, throughout the state of Georgia, and as well as throughout the region. We've been, I guess, together since late 2017, December 2017, and Right now, we roughly have 3,000 warriors that we've engaged with, and I am a retired Army medic, served in the U.S. Army for 10 years, and there we go.
Great, thank you very much. So we'll start in on a question that I really like, because it opens up for really great conversation, and just like to talk to you guys about, how do you make your initial interactions with your veterans in your community welcoming and impactful? Like, how do you do that when you first start to build your relationships? So yeah, so since we just left off with you, Jared, if you wanna go ahead and talk to our viewers about how that works with your organization in Atlanta.
Sure. So prior to the pandemic, of course, we would go out with our community partners, and we would be doing anywhere from volunteer work, food drives, taking our veterans, meeting our veterans literally at the Shepherd Center when they wanted to do a walkthrough at the Shepherd Center. We believe on a really hands-on type of partnership. You know, for us, it's really all boats rise. So the more support that we can garner for our partners, the better it is, as well as it gives us an opportunity to understand our partners. So we really have a pretty hands-on approach, if you will. That was prior to the pandemic. Since or during the pandemic, it's really been a lot of virtual engagement. So I have reservists that are on our team. I have 2 Rangers that are on our team. So it's just really digging into your background and digging into communities, you know, whether it be the military, whether it be the caregivers, and just being very relatable to people. So
Yeah, that authenticity, isn't it? Terry, will you talk to us about initial interactions that you guys do when you're meeting veterans?
Sure. And we'll touch on just like Jared said. So whenever you're doing outreach, your events, or maybe just informal engagements when you're just out and about on your own, you always want to be engaging. Cherie, we talked about it before, authentic and sincere, right? In everything that you do, whether, you know, we're in the veteran space, but this is just basic human interaction. So as much as you can be authentic and sincere in everything that you do, just makes people want to engage with you, right? Be a good listener, ask good questions, figure out what people's passions are, right? Because people do want to give. We're very kind, we're very giving people, right? And they want to be in part of something because they want to, you know, have a purpose-driven life. They don't want to waste their time, their money, or their assets, right? So as long as we're honest and sincere, we find that we break down those barriers quicker, right? We could find common ground, and it just helps with those relationships early on, and it just speeds the process up, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Einan, what are your thoughts, or how do you do this?
Just to echo off of what Terry said, it definitely has to be authentic when you're talking to somebody. You have to, when you're reaching out to these veterans here, you have to you just sit there and you listen to what it is that they're exactly telling you, you know, just lending them that extra ear and understanding, okay, well, maybe this is something that they need at that time, but then when you think about it, you retrack it again, and then it's something else different, you know. And then just simple doing follow-up and just lending that extra ear back to that veteran or the surviving spouse that comes to you for that help, and then doing that warm handoff to the next person, so then that way they're taken care of, and I mean, essentially at the end of the day, what the job should entail is the fact that you want to improve somebody's quality of life. You just want to give back to that person and say, hey, well, this is the best I can do for you. It's not much, but it's a step into the right direction, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we talked a little bit yesterday when we were prepping for this, and one of the things that I did when or continue to do is to make sure that I'm not over promising and under delivering, and that goes into the authenticity. It's also about being transparent, and that cultivates that trust. So I know that is something that I pay attention to when it's an initial interaction with a veteran or a partner, for that matter, is doing that. Great, really good discussion. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. What are the biggest don'ts when it comes to interaction? Jared, you're laughing. You must have one right off the top of your head.
Well, you've already touched upon it. Overpromising. That's the biggest thing. You have to manage the expectations of the warrior, of the expectations of the caregiver, and I think everybody in this space has a very big heart, but you have to realize that you have limited resources. And sometimes you just hear it and you just want to give them everything you can. But, one of the things here at the Warrior Alliance that we really, really believe in is we're going to meet our veterans or our warriors where they're at. But with that being said, we're working or walking hand in hand with you. I can't want it more than the veteran or the caregiver. So, we call it, we have a warrior care plan that each one of our warriors or caregivers get, and we hold them accountable. So we had to learn very early on, do not overpromise, but don't work harder for that veteran or that warrior than they're willing to work for themselves as well. So
no, Cherie, we talked about it yesterday. You had mentioned like preconceptions. Don't go in with preconceptions, and that goes for us and the veteran service member or their families when they come to us, right? It's lots of times they might be in crisis, so it's a very emotional moment, but we ask what their expectations are, but then just listening to see what the issue is. Jarrett, you touched on it, is we try to empower them on like, well, what do you want from us? What do you think you need from us, right? And there's there's takeaways for each of us, right? Like, here's what we need you to do, right? Here's what your accountability is, and here's what we're going to try to be accountable for. And then we'll work through this issue together, right?
right.
And like you said, there's really no promises, but at the end of the day, what we do say is we will be here with you if you want us to, hand in hand throughout the whole process to solve that issue, and or pass them off to other subject matter experts, right? Because we're not a one-stop shop, and we try to say that. Right. We do have some limited programs and services, but that's what's great about collaborating with our communities, right? So we can hand them off to other agencies to take care of their issues.
Absolutely. Einan, any don'ts?
Just the same thing. You don't ever want to overpromise anybody anything. And one thing that's what I had to learn at firsthand to myself is, hey, and that's one of the first things that comes out of my mouth is like, it's worth a shot, but there's no guarantee. It's something that you and I can work on together. And essentially that's what it is because, and I kind of draw that back into the military aspect, is because, in the military we have that battle buddy system. Sometimes we've been in that situation where we've always had somebody there beside us, walking with us and showing us the ropes, so to speak. And it's the same aspect when you come out, that some of these veterans, when they get out, there's not that leadership there. the lack of that leadership to try to tell them, hey, this is what could take place, or just trying to give them that. But at the end of the day, you can't overpromise them anything. And like how Jared said, the veteran's going to have to want it more than you, because you can only do so much and get them where they need to. And like how there's an old saying that we have here, you can only lead the horse to the water, but you can't make that horse drink that water, so to speak. So it's that in a nutshell too in itself. The veteran or the spouse is going to have to want it for themselves too, as much as you want it for them.
Mm-hmm.
And timelines are a little different too, right? In the military, we're always used to working faster, right? The support is always, it's closer. Out here, it's a bigger world, right? Sometimes, and when they're in crisis, it's very emotional. Things might not go as fast as someone wants them to, and that's the thing that you've got to help ease the individuals or the families that you're working with. Like, hey, we will get through this. So
I would like to add one thing, because Terry, you brought it up and it makes a lot of sense. Checking in on a consistent basis. For us, it's every 15 to 30 days. You gotta check in. Even if it's a one-liner or two-sentence statement in an email, or if it's a 30-second phone call, checking in with your warriors and your service members on a consistent basis helps manage that anxiety that they have. It helps manage expectations, and it just lets them know that you really are here for them. So,
yep, exactly right.
That is exactly right, because a simple phone call can go a long ways, or even a text message, and you'd be surprised sometimes when you do call them up and they're like, whoa, what happened to you? And it just gives you that like warm feeling again, like, hey, it's nice to reconnect with you again,
Yeah. Awesome. You guys, as I'm listening to you guys, we're talking about like do's and don'ts, but as you're describing those, you're talking about the theme, the general theme that's running amongst the comments is that this is a journey that you're side by side with your veteran family members and caregivers. That you're not. The don't is standing in front and behind. The do is side by side and walking through that journey with them. And how does that journey start, which we discussed, and then what it looks like when you're in it, and then how do you continue that? How do you continue that relationship? As with most of our relationships that we have, personally, professionally, we have to build trust and being authentic, not overpromising and underdelivering. Those are two ways that we build trust. But what are some other ways that you've found that you have been able to build trust and in addition to that, kind of a little bit the rapport, which is a part of that trust?
Well, I think Jared hit on it towards the end. When you're doing those check-ins, it's so once the issue is, say, solved, you can still check in with individuals after the fact, right? So we have a peer mentor program. It's veterans helping other veterans, right? So all our peer mentors have been in the military and have transitioned out. So they've gone through the process of transitioning, right? And in life, we all have our ups and downs. There's always going to be a problem to solve or an issue to take care of. But it's doing those after the fact check-ins. So it's not a fire and forget. I don't go and help Jared through an issue and then forget about Jared, right? And sometimes, it might be a 60-day. I might miss that 30-day checkup or whatever, right? But I do try to have my little list, and everybody at ClearPath does it. Who are we going? Let's re-engage with these people, whether they're donors, individuals that we helped, sponsorships, right? It's just that constant relationship building and consistency of sustaining and maintaining that relationship, right? Like we do in ordinary life with our friendships, right? So we try to reconnect in people that we truly care about. So it's the same, I think. It's just basic human interaction, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Ryan or Jared, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. This, kind of just reiterating what Terry's already stated. It is, you have to stay focused on the veteran or the service member or, the family member. And when we say focus, again, for us, prior to the pandemic, we volunteer with our partners. So we literally meet our veterans out in the community on a consistent basis. But one of the things that we do as a result of being able to use Warrior Serve, aka Salesforce, is that we were able to create a quality of life scale, and then we were also able to create a quality of service. Using those two tools, it's kind of a trigger for us that goes off, whether it's every 3 or every 4 months, that helps us re-engage. And then the other thing that we started doing, we started actually measuring, creating a metric for re-engagement. With the pandemic, at one point in time, we were getting anywhere from 80 to 120 new warriors, but it's not about getting new people into the system. It's about what do you do when they are in the system with you. It's the quality of service that you provide. It is, are you listening? I think all of us being in this space, one of the things that so many veterans have stated in the past is they don't feel like anybody's hearing them. And, getting out of your comfort zone. So for me, I like to do the physical health and wellness thing. But when I started volunteering with the kids camp, I've told, I have to laugh at this because I've told people I'd rather go to Afghanistan or Iraq than to have to deal with an 8-year-old. They tell you that they love you, and I'm like, no, I'm out. I'm past this stage, guys. But, again, it's being able to flex into different areas that you're not comfortable with, and just honestly, just being very compassionate. The concept of the human-centered design model, you can have all the technology in the world, but if you're not focused on that individual, you're just not going to be successful. Like I said, Terry, you kind of nailed it. So,
and when you do that, it sounds simple, but sometimes it's easy in that when you're authentic, sincere. So you might have helped somebody out, but now that person is now one of your volunteers, right? Or might become one of your trainers, right? Or one of our peers. Exactly. So we have a service dog canine program. A lot of the veterans that have went through there are now our trainers, or now they volunteer to help the veterans that are now going through the service. Same with our peer mentor program. They are now what we call wingmen. So they help out our peers because we service 24, 25 counties, right? And that's a big area, all the way to the Canadian border, down to the Pennsylvania border. So when you are honest and sincere, they just join you in other different ways, right? So they might have come to you for help, but now they're your volunteers, they're your trainers, they're your sponsors. So it's a big wraparound process.
And you're not putting them in like one, like in a whole sort of thing. Y'all are talking about while one person might need housing, another person really just wants to do volunteer activities or so by opening that up to one size fits one, when you're making that relationship with that individual, back to Jared, point about listening, and Einan has said this on several occasions, just listening to hear what someone is wanting, and not saying, okay, I've decided this is what you need. I know you came in here or you want this. Okay, that's great, but this is what we're going to do. It's that active listening, isn't it?
Yep.
Einan, I probably, I stole your active listening one. You have to call it another one.
Oh, my water.
Yeah, no, and like how you just said, just sitting there and listening to them. And I mean, like I stressed yesterday, we all go through experiences in life, you know, and sometimes we find ourselves in different scenarios where we can actually relate that back to that veteran. It may not be the same thing at that given time, but we can essentially, it's more on a deeper level, like where we can actually say we felt that at one point in time. We felt a certain way at one point in time, you know, and then just drawing back to that, and then actually connecting with that veteran or surviving spouse on that deeper level, and actually listening where they're coming from. And then also like just being very cultivated with the individuals you're working with, you know, because sometimes I through work, sometimes I come through individuals that are not really into their culture versus some other individuals. So it's kind of like, it goes back to the do's and don'ts, so to speak, you know. And that's one thing, like where you can't go into this like in a judgmental way, so to speak. You kind of have to be an open book, so to speak, to say, well, I'm going to help you regardless of what your background entails, you know, because you came to me for help. So I got to essentially try to do what I can for you, you know. But that's, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Another one that like I just thought about is confidentiality. I mean, when we're I think for all of us, when we meet a veteran for the first time and we're building that relationship, there are certain services that our personal organizations do, but they need additional services through partner organizations that we are partnered with. And I, you know, the confidentiality piece of saying, you know, like, I don't do this, but this organization does, let's do a consent so I can refer, you know, for those warm handoff type things. And also I think making them feel comfortable that the information that they provide to us makes them very vulnerable. And it's important when building trust to know that we are, you know, we're holding their confidentiality, their information protected. And so I just thought about that when you guys were talking through that. Wanted to mention it. So we kind of started moving into this next question a little bit, but I mean, maybe if you guys had some, like maybe some specific examples that we could provide our audience. The next question I wanted to ask was, have you encountered an interaction that didn't go as planned, and how did you handle it? And that could be a positive or a not positive outcome, I think.
I'll take that one.
You want to go? Okay.
Yeah, we had a very recent one. Young Marine was going through some difficulties emotionally, and we were able to get him housed. We were able to get him food, and we thought that we had him stabilized. Well, we were the only people to actually answer the phone. So he started leaning and leaning and leaning. And, you know, that's fine because that's what we're here to do. But we quickly ascertained that, hey, you need to be at the VA. Clearly, there's some issues that you have. And, you know, the VA here, they have an open door policy. You were going into the weekend and we were, you know, we didn't realize how severe his problems were, if you will. But to be able to get him to the VA, honestly, I had to call everybody from the fire department to the police department because, you know, he disclosed to one of my navigators that, you know, hey, I have a weapon. And one of the things that I always tell the team is we are here to protect you. We're here to work with you. But if your life is ever in danger, then I'm sorry, all bets are off. I'd rather have you mad at us and to be here than for you not to be mad or to be gone. So, you know, explaining that to him and having to honestly, you know, go through the highs and the lows, that was pretty tough on one of my navigators, because you want to do the right thing, but sometimes the right thing means that you do have to get multiple people involved. And sometimes the right thing means that aspect of trust, you know, it's like, hey, he confided in me. I said, yeah, but he didn't tell you that he had a weapon. And if you have, you know, some substance abuse, if you clearly emotionally and you're dealing with some things, then we got to do what we have to do. And so that was a hard one, you know, because the VA is the largest entity, and we know that they're overwhelmed, and we knew that was going to be a process, but it worked out for us. We were able to get him there. But, you know, it was just one of those hard things. We were all concerned, and it's difficult as a team to be on your computer or to be on the phone, and you kind of want to be there, but you're limited. So
it's about setting boundaries, right? Especially in that peer work. I mean, there are people in different states, just like you mentioned, Jared. They could be in a manic state, right? They could be in a very depressed state. And there are certain things that we have to act on. So if you say, hey, I have a weapon, or I might hurt myself, you know, the process of services and help right there has to end. That's that boundary, right? And I've had conversations with individuals like, all right, I'm going to have to make this call right now. I'm going to stay on the phone with you here, but now I'm calling, you know, 911 or whatever. And I will stay on the phone with you, the process. But remember, they are going to come to your house. You're going to get a knock on the door, right? And sometimes it seems like tough love, but they respect that, right? But if you set the boundaries up front, depending on what we're dealing with, like our peers always have the what we call the rules of the road, right? When we first engage and we say, all right, you're going to need help from our peers, and here's how they operate. And that peer, when they're talking to that veteran or the family member, they're setting those boundaries, right? It's that accountability type thing again. So, yeah, it might seem rough depending on the crisis, but as long as we take that breath to find that space to respond, we talked about that yesterday, Cherie, is instead of reacting, right? Because we always react with our emotions, and it's usually not the right way. Take a deep breath, and then let's respond to that situation or that moment, right, in the best that we can, in the most appropriate manner. And sometimes it might be the little tough love scenario, but that veteran and that person, as long as you're sincere again and authentic, they should know that, hey, you care about this individual, and this is why you're doing so.
Absolutely. And then did you want to talk about the benefit? You talked yesterday about the benefits, the veteran with seeking benefits, that interaction.
Yes. Yeah, so yesterday I was saying my interactions are totally different from out here, being on the Navajo Nation. I've come into contact with a veteran, you know, and his response to everything was the exact opposite. He said, I didn't know how I was going to do it. It was just, for him, he was trying to get VA benefits, you know, and every single time he was denied. And my question was to him, or saying to him, like, hey, well, we need to come at this at a different angle. You know, we can't keep targeting it at the same angle that we're going at. We have to come from it at a different area in order to better serve you or help you. So when we did that, we came and helped him from a different perspective. And when that happened, that's when he actually started receiving the benefits, you know, back from the VA. And it was phenomenal, because for him, it was just, there was nobody really out here helping, you know, or trying to give that back to the veterans. And when I did get into contact with him and helped him and navigated and did what I could for him, and when he got it, the words that he said to me were just, it just got me all warm and fuzzy, because I was just like, well, that's one person, just imagine how many more are going to soon to follow behind this guy, and I mean, now that I think about it, I did come into a veteran that he was an alcoholic, and he told me when he reached out to me for help, he said that he has a problem with drinking, and that's really, that's really no news for a military person sometimes when you hear that. And for me, I can relate to that too. I can say, well, at one point in time in my life where I was really relying heavily on the alcohol, and then I could relate to that with that guy. And when he reached out, he said, hey, I need help. I need to go to rehab. He was like, I need to do this. He was like, I'm ready. And of course it happened during the pandemic. And so I called up some people and started reaching out to different people. And what they told me was like the quickest way to get this veteran into rehab is to have him check into the hospital, let him go through that. And if he's sincere enough, he's going to do it, So, and I relayed that back to his family, because the family was on the line with me, talking to them and just walking them through it and telling them like, this is what you need to do. So we were able to help that veteran now, in that sense, to make sure that he's going to be okay, and I mean, as far as I know, he went through the process, and that's what I'm very thankful for, because I mean, you really don't know who's going to come knocking on your door, so to speak,
Mm-hmm. And it's changing strategies. That's such a good observation. When we are working with our populations or our veterans, and something's not working, being flexible to look at, reevaluate how we're doing it, and seeing what else, maybe a different strategy that we could use that could help to get them the services that they need. The last question I have for you guys is, what have you seen encourages veterans to stay involved with your organization? How do you keep their interest?
I have to laugh right now. Go ahead, Terry.
I just think it's through our engagement, right? You can't overemphasize it enough. When you're sincere and authentic, and you've had, because there's going to be good and bad experiences that people have. But we've had people that maybe didn't have the experience that they thought they were going to have with us, or we couldn't really solve their problems, or we put them to another service. It just didn't turn out the way they planned, right? And we talked a little bit about it yesterday. All of a sudden they drop off the net, right? When you're trying to do, Jared, when you're trying to do that re-engagement, right? 30, 60 days, they're not answering the phone, and all of a sudden, but now you might see them at an event, or they do happen to pick up the phone and they say, hey, we haven't seen you, or we haven't been in contact with you lately. They might tell you, well, hey, the last time, we talked with you, you didn't do this, or, this didn't happen. And it's just working through that problem and saying, well, hey, I'm sorry that it happened, but we'd like to re-engage with you. How's your life going right now, right? How's things going? We talked about those preconceptions. We always think that when someone drops off the radar that something bad happened. Well, all of a sudden their life can turn around for the better, right? And all of a sudden they're like, no, life's great right now. I don't need anything. And you're like, that's fantastic, and, hey, we're having this event. Why don't you come on out, be a part of this event? So I think with our honest engagement that we just get that reoccurring revolving door type process. And whether, people come around just like we talked about before, that they might not need anything, but they're like, hey, how can I help? Do you have an event coming up where I can volunteer, or just things like that. So we're blessed right now, even though we're going through this COVID situation that, Jared, like you mentioned, we've upped our social media content and this and that, and we're getting out and about in different ways that we weren't before. I mean, we have a rural area, so we were out there. It's just now we've had to be more creative, right? But people are still staying engaged, because these are kind of worried times for people. But they're calling us to say, hey, how can we be involved? What are you doing now since people can't come to you? That type of thing.
Right. So one of the reasons that I laughed is we just had September 11th, and I'm from New York, Terry, and I'm a lacrosse coach. So when you said Syracuse, I'm like, yes. But between the Travis Manion Foundation, and then between a group of us called the Shepherd's Men, we did virtual runs. The Shepherd's Men, we did a 22-hour run, and we did that with our ballistic vests, and we did that to honor those that we've lost. We did that to honor the men and women that gave their lives on September 11th. And it was, people want to see who you really are. And for us, being able to use social media, and I think I was 10 miles into the run, and I was just like, look, I'm hurting. Y'all see all this gray hair? I'm hurting, but it's genuine and it's honest. We just did an event, and we were very fortunate to do a food drive with Meals on Wheels Atlanta. And you're right, people want to get involved. Historically, people, veterans that serve, they want to give back. So we have more people who wanted to get involved, and that's great for us because, it's kind of, you have to take the precautions. So you have the food that you're going to deliver to the veteran, and, you get the food, you run up to their door, you knock on their door, you run back to your vehicle so you can do the social distancing. And you just, everybody here remembers these terms that we had when we were in the military. Embrace the suck. Yeah. You make the best out of what you have. And I think when people see that you're genuine, it just comes through. Yeah. It comes through in the conversations you have. It comes through the social media presence that you have. And it really helps with your partners to build that trust and understand that bond of trust, and know that, hey, we don't always have the answer, but if you work with us, if you're patient with us, and if you give us time, we will be able to help you find the right answer. And just like you said, Terry, hey, not everybody's going to have a good experience. And hey, you take that, I'm dating myself now, but you take that castor oil, okay?
I'm with you.
You swallow it. There you go. You swallow it down and you say, okay, let's go ahead and get started here. Now that we're back engaged, let's talk about what we have to do. So just being genuinely honest, letting everybody know that you're committed to them and to their needs, and just letting them know that, hey, we're going to be here with you as you go along this journey. So.
Great. And then what are some things that that you guys do to keep veterans engaged?
For us out here, it's just how I try to keep them actively engaged is, well, through the chapter that I'm associated with, is we try to go do wood hauling, going up into the mountains and reconnecting in that way, and then bringing it back down for the veteran or the surviving spouse, and then just going from there. The other thing, that the way I'm actually able to engage is, for me, it's a little different, because once I connect with this one veteran has relatives behind them, sort of, and those relatives, connecting with that one veteran, and then he's also, or she's also, bringing 3-4 different individuals to this. So then he is actually sending those to me, and then I'm actually reconnecting in that way. So then doing the follow-ups in that perspective for them. And that's how I actively engage with them, is just making sure that they're okay. You know, sometimes, I mean, I've had a few phone calls where they would personally check up on me, you know, and I thought that was pretty amazing when they would call and be like, hey, just, I haven't heard from you in a while, you know, how's it going? You know, and it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, you know, I've been focused on something else. I do apologize for that, you know, but it's just trying to keep them focused on that goal, or what goal they have at that point in time in their life, you know, and just giving them that extra little push to say, well, you know, this is, and it all goes back to experience again, you know, being genuine with that person and saying, well, you can't really control their situation, but you can tell them like, hey, this is my experience. No, this is what I went through. I'm just giving you a little insight of what I went through. It may not be the same, but you can go from there. But usually how we try to actively engage with them is through meetings, and going wood hauling, or just doing like little events for them, and just trying to make it like a family, holistic, so to speak.
You touched on a good point, Ina, when you talked about referrals, right? So the individual that you helped now talk to their family members, or they might have mentioned to a friend, right? Because we do it every day when we go out and we have a good steak or we have a good experience somewhere, we tell somebody something like, hey, I had a great time here, or this was great customer service, right? And that's a huge point right there, is we get a lot of referrals from just word of mouth.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. So we've got about 7 minutes, and I see a couple of questions that have come in. I'll read these questions out loud. You guys feel free to answer the ones that you're comfortable with. Before I move into the questions, I noticed, and I know we have a comment by Robert Murphy that I think we should share. Spoken like a true Marine, I'll just let you know. And he's talking in reference to, I think, building relationships and rapport and trust. And he says, gently remind them we served in the military as a team. We can do the same thing as civilians. Don't go it alone. That's where the enemy lives. And I think that's a fair point for that one. Okay, so first question that came in, and you guys talked a lot about follow-up and how your different strategies for following up with the veterans to maintain the relationships. How do you determine that fine line between following up with the individual and almost being a nuisance?
So we have a rule of 3. As long as we made 3 phone calls and we sent out 3 emails, if a person's not ready, they're just not ready. And, you know, I try to have those conversations so the team, whether it be the intake coordinator or whether it be the navigators, once they've tried to contact somebody at least 6 times, or if there is something that's hesitating, you know, causing them to hesitate in the process, we just try to really have a good conversation to understand where they're at. You know, Terry said it. Sometimes people, they come to you and they need resources, and then they have great success and they get busy, so they can't follow up with you. But then other times it's, you know, sometimes, especially when you're dealing with sensitive subject matters. I mean, right now you've got people who are unemployed. It's hard to talk about those things. You know, you're going from being on top of the mountain and taking care of your family, and now you need assistance. Those are hard subjects. So we kind of play it by case, individual by individual. And, you know, we just let people know that we're here to help, you know.
Yeah, and like you said, Jared, it depends on the programs and services, right? So when you were talking about an intake form, so we have an intake form, and it might be, say, our volunteer coordinator. Someone comes in and says, hey, we want to volunteer, or we want to do this. And they look on the sheet, they check a couple boxes off. And then our volunteer coordinator might say, okay, I'll reach out to you in a week or two or whatever. And here's, I'll let you know some of the events and some of the things that you've checked off here, the areas of what's going to happen. And they might contact them and they're not getting anything back. And so you mentioned the rule of three. Cherie, you've mentioned that before. And we kind of, that's a general rule too. So if someone's come to us and said, hey, we want to help or we want to volunteer, and we reach out a couple times and no response, then okay. I mean, they're in our data bank, right? But we're not going to be that hard sale, So, and then it just depends on the other services, the other programs on what that issue is, right? If it's a serious crisis issue or whatever, we still kind of try to use that general rule of three, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it might be one of them. It's not a phone. It might be a knock at the door, right? By one of our peer mentors, right? To go check on somebody. So it's not always just an email or a call. It might be an actual check-in, right?
Heinen, do you have anything to add?
They both, Jared and Terry, pretty much said it all. I usually try to reach out on the third call. If I don't hear anything back from that veteran, then, I mean, if they come back to me at a later point in time, then, I mean, I'm not going to turn the other cheek and tell them like, hey, well, you didn't answer my phone calls. I can't really do anything for you now. So it's when the person's ready, they're going to come to you, and you just got to kind of be more flexible in that aspect to go along with how it is that they are dealing with certain things, but one thing I do try to stick to is the follow-up 3 phone calls. I've left you some text messages, voicemails, and if I don't hear back from you, then you have my name and my number.
Yeah, and lots of times we could do it through other agencies, right, that we're collaborating with, right? Because that veteran is touching other spaces.
Yes.
So we could do it informally. I might call Joe or Sally and say, hey, have you seen, Jared in a while? We haven't been in contact. So you can kind of touch and feel and through those other agencies, right?
Yeah.
That's correct. And I like that because that's the way I usually do it too. Like if I'm not able to reach a certain veteran or spouse, I usually tap into somebody else to say, hey, have you heard from so-and-so, or have you seen so-and-so? And usually I get a quick response, and then I'm like, okay, well, we'll just let you have the time that you need, so to speak.
So this question is from John. He's a military liaison for mental health hospital in Wyoming. They accept patients from all over the country, and he's asking, do our programs take people from other states? Due to time limitations, if you guys don't mind, let me have a stab at this for us overall. So John, the answer to that is both yes and no. So you've heard like Jared talk about the program in Atlanta, but he has partners for services that do take individuals from other states. So if it is something that's there, then that comes through Jared. So he does take members from other states through his partner connections. Same with Einan, same with Terry. The actual day-to-day programs like that they do are generally local people that live in their communities and are living in the community. America's Warrior Partnership, we don't accept patients, but we serve individuals and communities throughout the United States. So I'm sure that Allison will send out as a follow-up all of our organizations, and you can go in and look at those, and you can see kind of like the reach area for the areas. Did I do okay with that, you guys? Sum up?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, Allison, take it away.
Thank you, Cherie. You guys all did an excellent job. Before we go today, I want to spend a few seconds just to thank our subject matter experts today. Sharith M. from America's Warrior Partnership, Aidan John from the NASNA Partnership, Jared Turner from the Warrior Alliance, and Terry Finley from Clear Path for Veterans. I also want to thank our sponsors that allowed us to have the symposium this year, and also that allowed us to have our post-symposium community integration seminars like today. America's Warrior Partnership's mission is to empower communities to empower veterans. We hope today's session, Knowing the Veteran, Building Trusted and Supported Long-Term Relationship, provided you with powerful insights and best practices. To empower your veterans, you must first find and connect with them. To truly get to know the veterans by listening and finding out their unique situation. Only then can you establish a trusted long-term relationship. Tomorrow, you will learn from other experts from the field as we all come together and collaborate with the ultimate goal of improving the quality of life for all veterans. So keep an eye out for next year's symposium, Warrior Symposium information. That'll be coming before we know it. And we hope to see you tomorrow at 2 for Serving the Veterans, offering holistic support through collaborative services. Thank you guys for your engagement and have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow.